In its simplest definition, jet lag is the disruption of our body's internal clock or our circadian rhythm. Doctors analyzed athletes and noted decreased performance after traveling both domestically and internationally. Change the time on your watch, your phone, and your computer to match the time at your destination as soon as you get on the plane. When we travel east, we are more affected than when we travel west. Vitamin C and zinc reduce both the severity and the duration of the common cold. When taken long term, vitamin C can reduce the incidence of the common cold as well.
Ryan Muncie is probably the smartest guy I know.
Trust me, Muncie is the nutrition guy.
Ryan Muncie's out there trying to make the world better for all of us.
The Optimal Performance Podcast is bold, edgy, creative, entertaining, and epic.
Ryan Muncie is my go-to guy.
Ryan Muncie he's the first guy I call.
He's making people's lives better. Ryan Muncie's an innovator.
What's up, guys? You're listening to the Optimal Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Muncie. Welcome to another episode. As you can tell from the title, this week we're talking about jet lag. Since Natural Stacks is a sponsor of the Optimal Performance Podcast, I have a special promo code for you to use that is specific to this episode. The code is JETLAG30, JETLAG 30, all capitals. I'm going to be mentioning a few of my favorite Natural Stacks products, along with some other products and other useful tools that I use to help reduce jet lag and enhance your travel experience throughout this show. So again, the code for the Natural Stacks products that I mentioned is JETLAG30 at naturalstacks.com. And of course, make sure you go to naturalstacks.com to see the blog post for this, along with all the resources, some studies, and any kind of links to other products that we talk about here on this episode. Couple other housekeeping notes. Make sure you guys go to iTunes, leave us a review, preferably a 5-star review. Let us know how much you like the show. If we read your review on the air, we will hook you up with free Natural Stacks products. So right now, Josephine N., you're going to get hooked up with free Natural Stacks products. Shoot me an email, ryan@naturalstacks.com. This is from iTunes. It says, thankful. I've been using several of your products for over a year now and absolutely love Siltep, Dopamine Brain Food, and Smart Caffeine. These products have been game changers for me since being exposed to mold that led to extreme brain fog, fatigue, among other things. I don't have the option to slow down as I manage a 24-person team directly and help support a 90-person department. Recently, I started listening to this podcast and have really enjoyed picking up additional knowledge that I can utilize personally. I will be on a continual journey of in discovering greater or new ways of thriving, and this podcast is now one of them. Thank you for all that you do and being on the front lines for so many of us. Josephine, thank you so much for that. That is a beautiful, glowing review. I appreciate your feedback. Everybody listening, I appreciate your support, and I echo what Josephine said. I think we're all on this journey. I don't profess to have all the answers, and I am out there learning and seeking and trying to optimize myself, and in the process sharing that, what I collect and what I gather and bringing it back to you so that we can all move our missions forward. So I'm grateful for you guys being here. Thank you for trusting me and us with your health, fitness, business, self-optimization goals, and thanks for being here. This is just really cool to be a part of such an amazing community. And again, share the OPP. If you hear things on this episode or any specific episode, share that episode with your friends and family, but also the podcast in general. Share the OPP feed, get more listeners out there, and that helps us help more people. And, we bring more people into this movement and make the world a better place. So thank you for being here. Let's get on with the show. All right, so I've been doing a lot of travel lately, and again, like I just said in sort of the intro, I'm no expert. I'm not immune to jet lag, but I have found a few ways to minimize the negative effects of travel and jet lag, crossing time zones, crossing oceans, going from one continent to another. This is by request, and I can't wait to share these with you. And again, thank you guys for requesting this topic. It's a great topic. And I think this is going to be a killer podcast. So if you have ideas like this, if you want a jet lag podcast or, whatever it might be, shoot me an email, drop me a message on social media, whatever. Be happy to hook you guys up and help you out with specific episodes like this. So this was actually an old blog post that we had when Natural Stacks blogs were on the optimalperformance.com domain. For whatever reason, it did not get migrated over. So I will be updating the blog post with the new tips and the new information that's in this podcast that's not on that blog post. This will all be on the naturalstacks.com blog post to accompany this. And again, more of you guys listen to the OPP than read the blogs. So this is another way to make sure we get this useful information to you. So before we really talk about the hacks and how you can overcome jet lag, let's first talk about what it is. In its simplest definition, jet lag is the disruption of our body's internal clock or our circadian rhythm due to travel through or across multiple time zones. Everybody reacts and responds differently. The symptoms can include brain fog, sleepiness, sleeplessness, insomnia, lack of mental focus or alertness, which definitely happens if you're not sleeping. Typically, travel of greater length or greater differences in time zones is going to result in a greater disruption of that biological clock and therefore increased jet lag. So, flying 3 hours one way is not going to disrupt you as much as flying 8 or 12 hours in time zone differences. Why does this occur? Basically, our clocks and our watches on our devices can easily be reset to show a new time zone when we arrive at a destination. Our smartphones, our computers, they recognize this time shift and can update themselves automatically. Unfortunately, by comparison, the software in our bodies is a little bit archaic and doesn't understand how to instantly reset itself hours ahead or behind with the flip of a switch. And we simply need time to adjust, and that time is what's affectionately known as jet lag. So what's happening to our bodies? Well, the answer is a lot. We can cram hundreds of people inside a metal tube that recirculates stale air, soars to elevations of 30, 50,000 feet, requires pressurized oxygen, bombards our bodies with radio and microwaves, gets us closer to cosmic rays, and we sit stationary for extended periods of time, again, longer periods of sedentary or stationary behavior on longer flights, leading to increased feelings of jet lag. We're creating, a veritable witch's brew of bodily stress, and there's a lot of science to support this. Any one of those things I just mentioned, if you're familiar with biohacking, you're familiar with how they impact our body. But in one sports medicine study, this was published way back in 1989, doctors analyzed athletes and noted decreased performance after traveling both domestically and internationally. And the condition clinically is known as dysrhythmia, and it's associated with malaise, appetite loss, tiredness, disturbed sleep. All of these symptoms all of these are symptoms of the shifts of the day and night cycle, which impairs the body's ability to regulate our biological clock and its associated functions, meaning sleep, hormone production, body temperature, the ability to use energy stores, aka body fat and or glycogen. So we're talking about metabolic processes here. It affects water excretion. This is one of the many reasons that we hold water when we travel. And all of these things compound to negatively impact our mental and physical performance. And that sucks because when we travel, whether it's for work or for pleasure, we typically want to feel our best when we're on the road. If you go on vacation, you want to feel good wherever it is you're going. If you're traveling, to another continent to present at a conference, you want to be at the top of your game when you get there. So it's in our best interest to be able to mitigate and attenuate these jet lag disruptions. So jet lag, air travel stressors, they may be unavoidable, but what we're going to talk about today are some travel hacks that we can employ to lower that physical toll on our body, to reduce the time required for us to adjust and recover so that we can perform at our normal capacities, both mentally and physically, as quickly as possible. All right, so here we go. 9 travel tips to help you reduce jet lag. The first one, and perhaps one of the most profound, I think the first 3 that we're going to list here that I have for you are probably the most profound, and these are actually 3 that are not on the old blog post. So the first one comes to us from Mark Sisson. Mark is an amazing guy, runs Primal Kitchen, Primal Blueprint, Primal Endurance book. He's been a guest on the podcast. If you haven't heard that one, go back and listen to it. But this tip actually comes from Mark's appearance on that episode of the OPP. And Mark's an amazing guy, smart guy. And this is a really simple tip. He says to change the time on your watch, your phone, and your computer to match the time at your destination as soon as you get on the plane. Whether you're taking a plane, a train, a car, whatever it is, when you start that journey, instantly change the clock to the time at your destination. That will give your brain, your body more time to adapt. And I will say that it's probably been a year and a half since I heard that one from Mark. And at the time, it just sounded kind of simple. I didn't really think it would work, but I've been doing it ever since then, and it makes a huge, huge difference. So I can't recommend that one enough. Mark, thank you for sharing that one with us. Number 2 is the human charger. I've talked about the human charger several times before. Met these guys at a couple of different conferences. They were at the Bulletproof Conference last year. I met Jari at the Biohacker Summit in Helsinki, Finland last November. And at that time, he hooked me up with a human charger unit. We've done some giveaways through Natural Stacks and given away quite a few of these. This is just an amazing tool. But the human charger is... it's basically light therapy, and it's using light to boost your energy, to boost your mood, and it's literally sunshine in your pocket. You can use it to beat jet lag. You can use it to defeat the winter blues or seasonal affective disorder. I'll talk about that in a minute. It's a really cool thing. It looks like an iPod. It's a very small unit. It's black. It's got a single dot, just like an iPod wheel in the middle. You click that, it turns on. It has headphones, and the headphones are actually special LED lights. It's a 12-minute cycle. So as soon as you press that button, it automatically runs for 12 minutes. With the headphones in your ear, it's pushing white and blue light into your ears, where the photosensitive receptors in our ears can pick that up and realize that, or you can kind of trick them into thinking that it's daytime. So I'm going to read you something from the Human Charger website. They say it best. Recent discoveries have shown that the surface of the brain has photosensitive receptors, much like those located in the retina of the eye. These photosensitive receptors can be accessed by light flowing through the ear canal. The Human Charger bright light therapy device does just that. It channels light directly to the light-sensitive regions of the brain via the ears using advanced LED set earbuds. This unit is incredibly simple to use. It has a single button to turn it on. Like I said, runs for 12 minutes. And the coolest thing is you can do it while you meditate. You can do it while you cook, while you run, while you're riding the train, answering emails. It's not something that you have to find 12 minutes outside of your normal routine to incorporate this. And I know with many of us, we have these busy lives. It's hard to, how many things can you add into your day, right? There's a point of diminishing returns. And that's one of the things I love about the Human Charger is you can just stick the unit in your pocket, plug it into your ears, turn it on, and then do whatever it is that you were going to do for the next 12 minutes, as long as it's not take a shower. Again, I think it's brilliantly designed. It's also really cool when it comes to jet lag. They have an app, and all you have to do is, it's a free app to download. When you download the app, you tell it where you're going, where you're leaving, like you tell it arrival, you tell it departure, you tell it times, and they have everything built in. So it tells you exactly when to use the unit. And we actually, I featured the Human Charger as a biohack of the week in in a Natural Stacks newsletter email. It's probably been about a year ago, maybe 6 months. I don't even know when it was, but I took a screenshot when I traveled. Well, it had to be less than a year ago, maybe 6 months, because I took a screenshot when I flew from New York City to Moscow for my trip to Helsinki for the Biohacker Summit. So the app told me to use the unit twice in the morning on the day that I left. And then as you scroll to the right on the app, it moves, from now to the future in the time, and it kind of tracks your plane's flight path. And then it tells you at what time to use the unit. For me specifically, it was every hour on the hour until I landed in Moscow at 10:30 a.m. the next day. So for that particular trip, I left New York City at 3 or 4 p.m., landed in Moscow, and it was 10:30 a.m. the next day. So, the ultimate red-eye flight. And then I had to get off of that one, connect, an hour or 2 hours later, and fly from there to Helsinki. I would arrive in Helsinki, and it would be like maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we had, events and dinners. So, this is something else that we'll talk about in a few minutes as another sort of hack. It was important that, if I did try to sleep on that flight, to, make it as early in the flight as possible so that, I wasn't waking up at, 2 p.m. or waking up at 10:30 a.m. and then going and doing these things. So I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But, the other thing that I found when I was in Finland was, it was Finland, it was November. If you've ever been to really high latitudes or low latitudes close to the Arctic Circle, you realize that certain times of the year, it gets dark really early. In Finland, it got dark by 3:30 in the afternoon, and that really messed me up on top of everything else. It also happened that, by the time I came home, it's Thanksgiving, it's Christmas, and in the Northern Hemisphere, it gets dark, depending on where you live, 3:30, 4, 5, 5:30 at the latest in the evening. So when it comes to using the human charger for seasonal affective disorder or the winter blues, I found it really useful to use the human charger every day between 4 and 5 p.m. To sort of delay my body's natural winding down. It worked surprisingly well. What I noticed is that if I didn't do that, I would start to get tired around 7 or 8 p.m., a few hours after sunset. And then because I didn't go to bed at that time, I would get an extra cortisol bump to kind of help me stay awake. And if you know anything about cortisol, you know that we actually want it to be steadily declining through the evening and at its lowest point when we go to bed. So excuse me, by using the human charger in the evening, I could kind of delay my body going into that sleep mode an extra hour or two, so it wouldn't hit me until about 9 or 10 o'clock, and that's when I would go to bed. So it improved my sleep, and at the time I was tracking sleep and energy levels with HRV, Fitbit, things like that. So I had both subjective and objective data to support that. So I'm a huge fan of the human charger. We're going to move on to some of the other tips for jet lag. But before we do that, we do have a deal for you from the human charger folks. I mentioned meeting Yari at a few conferences. Yari is a really, really great guy, and he wants you to be able to benefit from the human charger. So he's got a special code for Optimal Performance Podcast listeners. Use the code OPP to save 20% on a human charger. Just go to humancharger.com, use the code OPP, save 20%. All right, the next hack or travel hack is going to be some version of intermittent fasting, ketogenic diet, low carb eating, and simply making sure that you eat as many high quality nutrients, focus on micronutrients, and eat as many superfoods as possible. This will help you reduce inflammation, sharpen your brain activity. It makes eating easier when you're crossing over days and times, etc. Because you can just say, all right, I ate in New York at 3:30. I'm going to set a stopwatch when I leave here, and in 20 hours or 24 hours, I'm going to eat, or however long you think you want to fast. Because when you land, it may be, so we'll use my trip to Finland. I landed, it might have been 2 or 3 p.m. And as I said, it was getting dark. So it's really, really weird, and it can really, really throw you off. But having that stopwatch to say, okay, it's been 18 hours, I'm going to eat now, and then I'll start it again. And then by the next day, it really cuts that acclimation period down to 12 to 24 hours instead of 48 to 72 hours. Don't get me wrong, that first day when you travel, 8 time zones east is brutal. And that's something that I think I skipped over that, but there is research showing that when we travel east, we are more affected than when we travel west. So I live on the east coast of the U.S. When I fly to the west coast, I feel great when I get there, but flying west to east, coming home, it does affect me more. And same thing going to Europe. When I go to Europe, I'm affected more getting there than I am coming back and gaining that time. So when we lose the time, we seem to be more affected than when we come back and gain extra time, which makes sense when I phrase it that way. But there is science and research to support that as well. But in general, just the importance of eating right when you travel. Personal experience, my wife and I just went on an anniversary trip, and we were in the Bahamas. We were at an all-inclusive resort where, the focus is more on partying and, letting loose, and that's not our style. So we really struggled with getting the right types of food and the amounts of the right foods that we wanted. Sure, we could eat salads, but it was maybe romaine lettuce and bare minimum instead of what we might do at home, where we're getting wild herbs or locally grown organic stuff that has a greater nutrient density. So I really, really stress when you travel, if you can, to the best of your ability, eat local, eat wild, eat organic, and really focus on those micronutrients. I love traveling with things like fat fudge, something that is a performance food that has things in it like maca, turmeric, cocoa. I love the venison bars from Epic, the chicken sriracha bars. Both of those are 0 sugar added. I always travel with 100% chocolate. I travel with organic nuts, things that are easy to pack in my bag, don't take up a lot of space, don't add a lot of weight. I would love to travel with canned smoked oysters, but they're really heavy, so I really don't travel with them, but you can usually find them wherever you go. And I'll compare the Bahamas experience with recently traveling to Sweden, Finland, San Francisco, New York City. In all of those places, I was able to, lean on the people that I was traveling to see, to ask them, where's the best place to eat? Where can I get this stuff? Explain to them what I'm looking for, and they can point you in the same direction. And to that point, even in the Bahamas, I was able to do that. So definitely seek out locals and ask them for their advice on where to find the best foods, especially if you're upfront with them about what you're looking for. They'll be able to point you in the right direction. But in San Francisco, New York, I was able to get to healthy grocery stores, whether it be an Erewhon in Los Angeles or a Whole Foods or any organic grocer. In Sweden, we found an organic grocer where they had a salad bar, and we could go through and make our own foods and find all of the micronutrient rich foods. We had oysters and great salads and things like that really, like I said, they reduce inflammation, they help sharpen brain activity, and all of these things help flush out toxins and get our body back to normal. And to that point, I've talked to Ben Greenfield about this before. He and I both agreed on this one when I was on his podcast, that when we travel, typically eating a ketogenic style, meaning that we focus on lower carb, higher fats, moderate protein, has a better impact on us, both in terms of physical energy and in terms of mental energy. Not necessarily testing our blood or urine to see if we're in ketosis. It's really not about that as much as it is about following that sort of template when it comes to eating. And that really helps optimize performance. So let's get into a couple of the other hacks that we can do on the plane. We mentioned that, you can sit, if it's an 8-10 hour flight, you're sitting for a long time, even, across the US, it's a 5-hour flight. Sitting stationary for many hours at a time is never good for circulation. Add the pressure and altitude to the equation. You've got a recipe for all sorts of disruption to our homeostasis. That poor circulation means reduced oxygen and nutrient delivery to every cell in our body. And there are other potential circulation issues, including edema, swelling, aches, pains. There's even the potential for blood clots, especially in the legs and the feet. So there's a couple ways we can get around it. One, you can wear those compression or circulation socks. You can find those at most outdoor or running stores like Dick's, Sports Authority, Fleet Feet. They're definitely worth the investment. The other alternative is to wear compression pants, depending on the weather. You can wear those underneath your jeans or sweatpants, whatever comfortable pants you like to travel in. Excuse me. There's numerous brands to choose from. Right now, I'd have to say my favorite is Virus. Of course, you can get something from Nike and Under Armour, but I don't feel like they do as much for circulation. 2XU or 2XU is another great brand. So definitely check those out. I'll have links to those on the blog post for this for you guys. Next point is sleep enhancers. So again, the biggest component of jet lag is the disruption of sleep. The better quality sleep we get on the plane and the better we time it, the better we feel and perform when we arrive at our destination. So short of buying a high price ticket for, first class where you get a fully laid back flat bed, there's not a whole lot we can do about the space or the seats on a plane. But there are a few travel hacks that we can use to increase our chances of getting better sleep and actually getting sleep on the plane. So I always fly with sunglasses. I put those on as soon as I get on the plane. When you're at altitude, if the windows are up, you're going to get exposed to a little bit brighter light, more cosmic rays. So sometimes it can help to, you can't control whether everybody on the plane has their shade pulled down over the window. So either an eye mask. I'm not comfortable with those. I prefer sunglasses, but whatever works better for you. The Earth's atmosphere is thinner up there, so you are exposed to greater amounts of cosmic radiation. Our eyes take a brunt of that. So even if you're not planning to sleep, close your window shade at the very least. Wear some UV blocking sunglasses. Pillows. Neck pains, getting a tight neck, angry back from terrible posture, all those things make jet lag worse when you land. So anything that you can do to prevent that. A pillow helps prevent terrible posture. Depending on the bag that you take, if you have a bigger carry-on bag, you can put it in your lap, wrap your arms around it, lean forward, put your head on it. You can wear those little pillows, the neck pillows, whatever works better for you. But I'm a big fan of hugging my backpack, especially if it's big enough to keep me from hunching all the way over. Play with the way you sit. You can put your feet on the seat and, get in a full squat position. We'll talk about things like that as we get later on in the podcast. We'll talk about moving. Look into noise canceling headphones. Planes are loud, especially if your seat is near the engine. There's crying babies. That's bad for our sanity. Neighbors want to talk with you. That's great unless you want to try to sleep. All those things can be blocked out just by putting on a pair of headphones, even if it's just earbuds. That sort of signifies to the person around you that you're trying to sleep or focus. But definitely focus on some of those things. Timing your sleep. I touched on this earlier, but that's really important. So, like using the trip from New York to Moscow and then Finland as an example again. Like I said, it was 10:30 in the morning when I landed in Moscow. I needed to get on another plane an hour or two later, and then it was like, say, 2 p.m. when I landed in Finland, and I had an event from 4 to 10 p.m. that night, and then I needed to try to go to bed. So the worst thing I could be doing would be sleeping, as soon as I landed, getting to Moscow, getting to Finland. So that's why I said earlier, the earlier in that flight from New York that I could get that sleep, the better. Now, yes, that would be difficult because it was also 3:30 in the afternoon there. So you want to start looking at, if you're drinking coffee, if you're timing your caffeine, you want to shut that off earlier in the day before you leave the U.S. or you leave the West and travel towards the East. So take all those things into account and, sort of reverse engineer it. Think about where you're going to be, how you want things to go when you get there, and then look at what you need to do now and between now and then to help make that happen at that point. Work with the end in mind, or start with the end in mind and work backwards. I think that'll really help the next time you travel. Always look at immune boosters. There's no fresh air on an airplane. The air we breathe on those things is recirculated throughout the cabin for the duration of the flight. There's not much airing out when the planes refuel and reboard for the next flight. So just keep in mind, that you are breathing in recirculated air. While we're in that metal tube, we're also exposed to increased radiation, both from inside the plane and from the outside due to thinner atmosphere at higher altitudes. So in short, our immune system is getting bombed with germs, bacteria, all sorts of performance-robbing villains. Here's a few things that I do to boost my immune system. Activated charcoal, I'm a big fan of that. I haven't been using that lately, but it's definitely one to kind of keep in your arsenal. Glutathione is the body's master antioxidant. I've been using a suppository form of glutathione that I got from a previous podcast guest, Dr. John Lawrence. I believe he was on episodes 105 and 106. Go back and check those out. He is an anti-aging, age management, stem cell, functional cranial release physician and chiropractor. So those were great episodes, and he's gotten me kind of hooked on using those because the concept is that while the glutathione has more time to sort of bathe the mucus of the intestinal tract and be absorbed much better that way. If you're familiar with glutathione, you know that taking it orally doesn't really do the trick, because it gets digested through that first pass through the digestion, and it doesn't really get to the cells where we want it to. That's why the original bulletproof form of glutathione was the liposomal tagged gel that was in the little syringe. If you're not ready for glutathione, you can definitely go with vitamin C and zinc. Natural Stacks makes an amazing one that I always take when I travel. Numerous benefits of vitamin C for the immune system. They're fairly well known. We've written about them in several blog posts. But when combined, vitamin C and zinc reduce both the severity and the duration of the common cold. When taken long-term, vitamin C can reduce the incidence of the common cold as well. I take this daily, and I up my dose to maybe 4 or 5 times normal levels when traveling. Because it combats oxidative stress, it increases that master antioxidant glutathione, it speeds recovery, it optimizes killer cell and macrophage activity, and it decreases levels of infections and dis-ease, not disease, but dis-ease, right? We'll phrase it very carefully. Drink tons of water. Your cells get bombarded when you travel. If you've ever taken a bottle of water on the plane and you see how it expands, you see how that pressure in the cabin can impact things like just the air in the water in your bottle of water. Our body is water and air. So if it's happening in that bottle, it's happening in our body. So drink tons of water, hydrate your cells, help flush out toxins. There's a great quote that says, the solution for pollution is dilution. So if you feel like you're getting exposed to things that you don't want, drink tons of water. The imagery there is, think about walking through a forest, and if you come across a stale, stagnant, algae-filled pond that has no moving water, and compare that to walking through a forest and coming across a trickling glacial stream that has constantly renewed water that is clean and pure. That's what we want. Staying hydrated is crucial. Don't worry about having to use the restroom more. It's a great excuse to get up and walk around, move more on your flight. We're going to talk about moving in just a second. If you can get mineral waters like Pellegrino, Perrier, they're in most airports. You can get those. My favorite, however, would be Gerolsteiner. But these things provide your body with more minerals. There's bicarbonate to help buffer. So that's going to support immune and other metabolic functions. The other thing that I've been doing lately is Natural Stacks has an amazing stack of myco products, the mushrooms. Myco Immune is a blend of turkey tail, reishi, and chaga. These are amazing for longevity and immune system function. I actually go to Starbucks or any coffee shop in the airport and I order hot water. I bust open 2 capsules of Myco Immune, dump it in, and make a mushroom tea, and I drink that. So I'm getting hydrated and I'm getting immunomodulating mushrooms that are full of beta glucans, which help improve immune function. So those are some things that we can do to boost our immune system. A couple other things: grounding and earthing. There are 2 ways that we can achieve this. One on the plane, the other as soon as you land. On the plane, you can try connecting your skin to the metal. There are grounding strips within the plane. So the best way to do this is, just expose your heel, pull your heel out of your shoe, pull your sock down if you're wearing socks, place it on the metal strip on the floor or on your seat. It sounds weird. Science is not always conclusive, but you can try it. And if it works for you, great. If you don't notice anything, don't worry about it. I learned that one from Dave Asprey. I know a lot of people who swear by it. So again, try that one for yourself and see if it works. But then the one thing that we know is impactful and effective is earthing. So when you land, get outside and touch a tree, or get barefoot and put your feet in the grass, and this will help us absorb negative ions from the earth. It helps us achieve balance and help combat with some of the negative bombardment that we are exposed to while we're flying. Recent research does show that our immune system functions better when we have a surplus of electrons or negative ions, and that's exactly what we accumulate when we are barefoot in the sand, barefoot on the rocks, barefoot in the grass, touching a tree. So that's why earthing or grounding can be so impactful. It's also why we feel better at the ocean or by waterfalls. Those things give off negative ions. Sea salt lamps. So if you don't have waves or waterfalls, no problem. Just find some grass. There's usually grass outside the airport, your hotel. There's trees. Find them, grab them, touch them, absorb those negative ions. The next thing is going to be exercise and movement. John Rattay is a favorite author of mine. He's a best-selling author, Harvard neuropsychiatrist. He says exercise is the single most powerful tool that you have to optimize your brain function. On the plane, it's simple. If you're awake, move as much as possible. When you can, get out of your seat and walk. If you're seated, focus on specific joints. Roll your wrists, move your elbows, do neck rolls, move your ankles. Try to move your knees as much as possible. Focus on figure eights, draw the alphabet. This will help you pass the time on a long flight. It increases blood flow. It moves and lubricates joints. The more you move, the more you circulate that blood, the more you prevent joint stiffness, and the more you'll become aware of your posture and potential positions that could lead to back, neck pain, blood clots, things like that during your trip. So I think, maybe set a reminder on your phone to go off every 30 minutes or every 60 minutes if you're going to be awake, and move, change your position. Like I said earlier, put your feet in the seat and sit in a full squat. We had a great podcast with Aaron Alexander from Align Therapy. You can go back and listen to that one, but we touched on how our posture, how we sit, how that dictates physiology and emotion and feelings. But if you sit in a depressed state, you're going to feel that way. So sit in a way that incorporates or resembles somebody who is energetic and enthusiastic and positive. After the flight, you don't need to go straight to a squat rack and shoot for a new world record squat, nor should you. Expect your nervous system, your balance, other fine motor skills to be a bit off. So when you work out, especially that first workout, when you get to a new place, it should be short, 20 or 30 minutes. It should be moderate in intensity, and it should be fun. The purpose, again, is not to set a PR, but the purpose is to get blood flowing, to reset your nervous system, to restore full range of motion in basic movement patterns, and to help reduce the amount of time it takes you to acclimate to the new time zone. You can incorporate this into your grounding and earthing practice by doing the workout outside and barefoot. Do it in the sand, do it on grass. It could be something as simple as doing some of your favorite yoga moves. My favorite reset workout is adapted from something that Dan John calls the swing, squat, get up sequence. It's a great base here because it includes squats, hip hinges, ground-based movements. I've added push-ups, crawls. You can do band pull-aparts because a band is really easy to throw in your travel bag. It includes pushing, crawling, pulling movements, all of the basic movement patterns. And again, the band is something that easily fits in your carry-on luggage. If you don't have access to dumbbells or kettlebells at your destination, you can do a body weight alternative. So I like to do 3 rounds of this circuit, either a baby or a bear crawl for 50 feet, kettlebell swing for 25 reps. If you don't have a kettlebell, just do 5 broad jumps. And again, maybe don't go for your max jump, but again, you're trying to jump at about 60 to 80%. It's not worth tearing a muscle or, getting injured. 20 push-ups, 10 goblet squats. If you don't have a kettlebell or a dumbbell, I know you can use your luggage. You can find something to hold, for the goblet squat. I do 1 Turkish get up on each side. Again, if you don't have a dumbbell or a kettlebell, just do this one unloaded. Do the same movement but without load, and then 20 band pull aparts. And again, I do 3 rounds of that. So it's a crawl, a swing, a push up, a squat, a get up, and a band pull apart. That's something that you can do anywhere. It takes minimal time, and I actually do that following some sort of movement circuit, whether you want to call your dynamic warm-up or your favorite yoga positions. But this really helps get blood flowing and gets dopamine going, helps with pattern recognition. We get that from the increased dopamine, and that really sort of helps, again, reduce the amount of time it takes to acclimate to the new environment. I'm not a big fan of taking melatonin. The Natural Stacks method of supplementation is not to hammer a pathway. We prefer a more gentle approach, like a GABA or a serotonin brain food, for long-term usage. But I know a lot of people who, on occasional long flights across continents or oceans, take melatonin to help induce sleep and reduce the effects of jet lag, when they want to fall asleep. But I would focus on things like serotonin brain food or GABA brain food. These are supplements that I consider a must-have in my travel arsenal. With serotonin brain food, we know it contains rhodiola rosea, which we know can help reduce travel-related stress and anxiety. Plus the serotonin precursors and raw materials support metabolism of that crucial neurotransmitter, which improves mood, promotes relaxation. So it's sort of like travel without the stress of travel. And that's it, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one. If you have a jet lag hack of your own, anything I missed, let me know. Post it in the comments for this episode on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or the blog post at naturalstacks.com. Again, while you're at naturalstacks.com, use the code JETLAG30, JETLAG30. That's all capitals. And make sure you leave us a review on iTunes. Let us know how much you like the show. If we read your review on the air, we will hook you up with free Natural Stacks products. And finally, share the OPP with your friends and family. I appreciate your love, your support, your time for listening and for being here. Catch you guys on the next episode.